Welcome back. The first session was great, just an introduction to AI, and now we're going a little bit. The best part in learning is that you do something. It's good that you appreciate that generative AI and AI is something to learn, but then it's also important that you begin to make use of that generative AI, and that's why we're introducing prompt engineering to you. Of course, my name I've been introduced already, so I don't want to waste time going back to the introduction. Yeah, prompt engineering. Think of prompt engineering as a way of communication, talking to somebody, because that's the way generative AI acts. It mimics human. So it wants to respond to you like you are talking to a human being. And so look at it as you are talking to a friend. And for a friend to understand you perfectly, you must give a good description of what you want, or else your friend can give you a wrong answer. And so that's what prompt engineering is all about. It's the process of designing effective instruction for AI systems to produce reliable, accurate, and high quality outputs. Because AI responses depend heavily on how inputs are phrased. Understanding key prompting techniques help improve performance across analytical, creative, and technical tasks. Now, before generative AI and the large language models, we had just the search engines, which maybe after asking a question, it just brings out result based on how best it fits the answer is and rank them. So you now look through and choose the one that you feel that is best convenient for you. But then for large language models, they give you the answer in a human-like response. And so we look at quickly at sorry, okay, the pillars of prompt engineering. So if your prompts must be effective, you must look at the personnel, the context, the task, how you want the output formats to be. You evaluate it, and if the result is good for you, you take it. If it's not good, you reiterate. That's you reframe your prompt again. So let's look at it one by one. Let's look at the personnel. So set who or what the model should act as. A defined personal guide, tune, expertise level, and perspective. So if, for example, you want to ask a question about cybersecurity, you tell the model you are using that act as a cybersecurity analyst and maybe and explain a concept for me. The reason you do that is that you want the response to be domain specific. And then you also want the response to be professional, the tune to be professional. And sometimes you use that when you want to simulate maybe an interview or a consultation. That's where you use personal. Areas where you don't use a personal is when you want an unbiased response or you want a neutral answer. You don't care how, where, or who is giving the response. You just want a response, so you don't specify the personal. And when tune should be open or undefined. The second aspect we quickly want to look at before we go to the prompting is the context. What context are you looking at? So provide all relevant background details. The AI needs to understand the task. More context reduces ambiguity and mistakes. The funny thing about response from the large language models is it can give you a very wrong answer. And also it can assume, can hallucinate. So you will need to be careful. I also want us to be aware that not every question you ask your LLM that they give you the right answer. So if you are asking a question, you should also have an understanding of what you are expecting. So don't think that you just ask your LLM any question and it will give you any answer and then you take it, you swallow it that way. No, you will need to check through the answer and be sure that the answer fits what you want. So that's where we're talking about the context. So example is you are helping a team that is building a voice control main budgeting app. So you can design a prompt this way, act as a full stack developer and an AI expert, and you are helping a team that is building a voice control budgeting app. These prompts will help the LLM to understand the context you are coming from. First, you have state the personnel, and then you are also building an app. So when do you use this context? When you are designing products, when you have a long form writing, or you need a multi-step workflows. When not to use, when you just need a simple factual questions, I mean, just a simple answer. You don't need to use context. A creative tasks where ambiguity is helpful. There are some response that ambiguity is helpful. So in that case, you don't want to limit it to the context. Task. Also, you could also specify what tasks do you want the model to do. E.g., generate a 3-paragraph executive summary of this document. So you can decide to upload the document to ChatGPT or Gemini and ask it, give me a summary of this document. Or you can just say, summarize this document in 3 sentences for me. Make it concise. So you are giving the LLM or the model just a task, perform this task for me. So use cases for summaries, explanations, or maybe you just want to transform a writing, for example. Sometimes you could have, maybe after this prompt, you can decide to say, okay, this is too concise. Can you make it more larger? Make it 4 sentences for me. And it does, just a task. When not to use for exploratory brainstorming, of course, that's very wide, it's open if you're brainstorming. So when not to use for exploratory brainstorming, of course, brainstorming, you know that you accept everything. You just want it to be wide. You want the context to be open so that you can choose from. And then if it's a free flow creative ideation, you don't need to use specific tasks. Yeah, you can also define the output, how you want the output to be. You could tell the large language model to give you bullet points of an answer. You could say, okay, give me the result in a tabular form, give me the result in a JSON form, give me just 2 paragraphs, or make it in steps. This is part of what you can add in your prompt to give you the specified result that you want. For example, you could have something, generate an annual salary report from the document and present it in a tabular format in an Excel file. So with this, what the model would do is that it will give you that report in a tabular form, but also in an Excel file that can be downloadable. So use cases, when you are writing a report, maybe for data structuring, templates, forms. When not to use, when it is highly creative writing, of course, you will not need just maybe a bullet point for creative writing. It could be something a whole lot. You will not use a tabular for table for creative writing and the rest. So, and if tax is your tax needs flexibility, you might not need to give that output format. Evaluate. Give criteria for the model to check its outputs. Now, when you write in your prompts, sometimes you want to give a base for evaluating if the result is correct or not. So, for example, ensure the explanation is simple enough for a beginner. So sometimes you could say, define a noun. Make sure the answer is for a 5-year-old child. So in this context, you are telling the model to give you the response that is best fitting for maybe a 5-year-old child. So we have a sample prompt here. As a scientist, explain black holes and ensure the explanation is simple enough for a beginner. Yeah. Look at how you want to evaluate it. Your evaluation is that it should be simple enough for a beginner. And that gives you the results you want. So use cases. You use this for quality control, technical accuracy, style consistency. When not to use, when you just need a short task or a spontaneous brainstorming, you will not need to use to evaluate. So reiterate. From the beginning, I said, if your result, maybe after evaluating, and you see that your result is not giving you what you want, what you need to do is reframe again your phrase. For example, maybe you have asked ChatGPT to give you a definition, maybe of a noun, and it gives a whole lot of definition. You can begin to streamline and say, okay, I like this definition to be concise, make it simple, maybe for a beginner. You refine it and then look at the answer. If the answer is fitting, if it's not fitting, you refine the prompt again, and eventually you will get to the result you want. So that is reiteration. You iterate, change the prompt until you get the result you want. So we had this prompt we gave earlier. We said, as a scientist, explain black holes and ensure the explanation is simple enough for a beginner. And then it generates a response. A black hole represents a mass so dense that it punches a hole through the fabrics of space-time, creating an infinitely deep well. So this is the response, and maybe you can decide, okay, I want to rewrite these prompts. You are reiterating now. You can say, rewrite the black hole explanation with clearer description and provide some examples to explain it to a beginner in astrophysics. Yeah. So the AI still generates a response for you again. The good thing I like about model is that they are not tired, they are not human beings. So if you like rephrase the prompt 10 times, it will still give you an output. So here it says a black hole is a region of space-time where gravity is so incredibly strong that nothing, not even light, the fastest thing in the universe, can escape from it. Refining the prompt for you. Okay, example and use cases. When to use prompt engineering. Generating organized professional documents, producing accurate technical explanations, detailed multi-step planning, writing code, reports, or academic context, creating consistent output, maybe tables, summaries. The beautiful part of it is, even for your letter writing, you could decide to say, can you write a letter to a friend, to my friend? Maybe you can even put the name. Describe what you want. The model produced the result for you. You can say, I want to rephrase this, make the tone empathetic and professional. It does, refine the later for you until you get what you want. When not to use prompt engineering? Extremely simple questions. Of course, if you know the answer, why do you need to ask the large language model? If the answer is just something you could just walk through and get, you will not need to waste more time, because the essence why we use prompt engineering and those models is that we want to get tasks done quickly. Instead of cracking your brain to write a letter that could take you 30 minutes, within 5 minutes, the large language model, a minute, the model writes a good letter for you that you will struggle to write normally. Yeah, so when deeper structure isn't needed, you don't need to use prompt engineering. When creative freedom is desired, tasks where too much instruction task where too much instruction is needed. So if you have a task that much instruction is needed, prompt engineering will not be good for such tasks. Will not be good for such tasks. So you will not need to use prompt engineering at this stage. We go to different types of prompts that we could use. Here, we are looking at zero-shot prompting. In zero-shot prompting, you're only giving instruction with no example. Define a noun. Or you could simply say, give me details about my school. If it's a popular school that has information online, the instruction will be given. Write a 100-word summary of an article for me, for example, on generative AI. No shots, just zero-shot prompting. So we have an example here. Translate the following English sentence to French. The pillars of prompt engineering are essential for generating effective AI output. Zero shots. We didn't add an example to it. And what ChatGPT does, it brings out the result for you. So best for short tasks, general knowledge, and straightforward instructions. But limitation is may produce inconsistent structure. So like I said, and I'm saying again, that the answer that your large language models might give you might not be completely correct or suit the case that you have. So again, zero-shot prompting, just instruction, no example. So we go to few-shot prompting. You are providing example for the large language model, and then it uses that example and give you result. So for example, you have an input as a cat. Maybe you are saying that a cat is an animal, or maybe you are just saying, okay, give me 5 examples of animals, and you said a cat is an animal, a dog is an animal, but humans are not animal. So with this, cats give you, the LLM give you results of other animals apart from the ones you have listed, but you have given sample of animals that you want. So best for classification, style replication, formatting, consistency. Limitation, example must be high quality. That's another beautiful part, because if the example you are giving is contradictory to another structure, your response might not be good as you expect. So the example you are giving should be able to, stand out based on the response you want to get. So chains of thoughts prompting, encouraging the model to show step-by-step reasoning to improve accuracy. For example, think through this before answering. Show each step that leads to your conclusion. So let's look at one example here. We have the library had 20 books. They bought 15 new books and lent out 8. How many books do we have? So it begins to answer. The library started with 20 books, then they remove 8. The final answer is this. So you could ask again, a bakery made 50 cookies. They sold 38 in the morning. In the afternoon, they made another 15. How many cookies does the bakery have left? So with this, it also can give you, because it's a chain of thought, and sometimes for a chain of thought, sometimes you could even put up a document and ask ChatGPT to give you response based on this document step by step. Based on every answer you answer, it gives you a response. You bring another question again, it gives you a response. All right, so great. Prompt start with curious minds. Effective prompt engineering combines clarity, structure, and iterative refinement, following the pillars: personnel, context, task, output format, evaluation, criteria, and iteration. That makes AI response predictable, accurate, and aligned with user expectation. So if you want good results, you must be careful and take time to, give the LLM model a good prompt. Prompt that is directive. Include personal if you need maybe a professional answer. Include context, include tags. If you need a structured output, include the output format. If you need to evaluate it, if you want something that can be evaluated, give the evaluation criteria. And then if you want to iterate, you iterate over it again and again until you get the result you want. So for me, I like being lazy. So I ask my model several questions. Sometimes after doing the work, I'll still go back to it and say, this is what I have done. Sometimes after even writing a letter or an article, I will still go back to it and say, can you look at this later? Correct every grammatical expression, make it professional for me. And then you compare what you have written with what the model is giving you. So for me, prompt engineering is what we don't need to take for granted. It's what we need to apply every day of our life. What is prompt engineering? Everything that goes before the prompts. It could be from the a database and other info stores. For example, you are having maybe a rule, a database administrator, a task, an instruction, a context, and it gives the prompt, it gives you an output. If it's from a library, give it a prompt based on the rule, the task, the instruction, the context, it gives you an output. Sometimes I do try funny things. Put up my CV on a chat GPT, put up a rule, maybe that somebody's applying for, and say, can you fit in this rule? Modify the CV, it does for you. And so making tasks very easy, because for me, repetitive tasks are not meant again for human. Repetitive tasks are meant for machine, like the large language models. So the future is ours. Let's build it together. Let's not procrastinate. It is time to begin to use these models and then get inside, be into what we want. So that's that from here.